Hey, my name's Paul Manning. I'm an undercover police officer. I infiltrated the Mafia and the Hells Angels at the same time. Wrote a book about it, 1078, and I'm chatting with Staxx.
Welcome to this episode of Chatting with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today I got Paul.
How's it going?
What's up, Paul? How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Enjoying the sun. You?
I'm pretty cold up here in Connecticut.
Yeah.
But you're originally from Canada, right?
Originally from England. I'm British.
England.
I'm English. Yeah.
So we're going to get into how all this transpired for you. You have a crazy story.
It's pretty insane. Yeah.
Where were you born and raised?
So, just a small town called Accrington, just outside of Manchester, north of England.
And what was your early life like?
That's pretty rough. It's a poor town. A lot of opportunities to do the wrong thing, and I chose not to, or I chose to a few times, and then I chose to join the army. I was working the doors by the time I was 16 as security, and then I just decided that there's only two paths. If I stay in that little town, I'm going to go to jail, like a lot of my friends did that I work with. So I joined the army at 18 and joined the military police.
And when did you go over to Canada? And are you able, when you live in London, or England, are you able to just go to Canada?
No, it's pretty much like the US. Excuse me, I'm kicking a chest infection. It's pretty much like the US. There's an application form. There's medical tests. There's everything. There's everything you'd expect anyway for a legal move. I went from the military police. I went into covert operations. Worked on the covert operations team for the special investigation branch, and then from there I joined the Metropolitan Police. I did some undercover work there, but mostly uniform. I got promoted pretty quickly to sergeant, and an opportunity came up to move over to Canada. I looked at a few police services in Canada, much better standard of living compared to the UK. A lot cheaper at the time, now not so much. And it just seemed like a reasonable move. And then we found ourselves in a position where the police services that I'd chosen weren't really for me. We weren't a good fit. Toronto were particularly very professional service, but there was something said during the interview that made me go, you know what, we're going to have problems in the future. It's not worth it. So the wife had just got on with Sussex Constabulary down in the south of England, and there was a decision made that we'd stay in the UK. And then a police service called Hamilton reached out and said, listen, we've got a project. You've worked undercover before, police officer. We won't mind you coming in and seeing if you can shut down a couple of problem premises. And that's where it all started.
And how old were you at this time? What year was it?
So it was 2005. God, you're asking me to do math. 32?
Did you?
32, yeah, because I got promoted to sergeant at 30 in the Met.
So now your first undercover operation, well, not your first, you did some before, but this is a major operation, right?
It didn't start out that way. It was sold to me. There were a couple of problem premises. There was a crack house called the Sandbar, which was a real shithole. It was disgusting. And then there was another facility called Up in Smoke, and it was an establishment where people went in and smoked weed, which at the time was frowned upon, and now it's completely illegal. And we looking back, we just wasted our time for God knows how many years trying to deal with that. Both were pretty easy infiltrations, but I had a lot of experience going in there. I was part of a UC team for almost 3 years where all we did was undercover work and surveillance. So that was pretty easy. That portion of it was pretty easy. We got in within days. And then it went to, because we did so well, we started hitting the bangers and the local dealers and all crack purchases. And we never got refused. And it was all cold calls. It was me picking up the phone, calling somebody and saying, "Listen, can you sort me out?" And they come out, they meet me, and we buy off them. So we probably got, in the first 2 weeks, we probably got maybe 40 people on 300 offences.
Just free stuff, right?
Just low level. We call it test purchase in the UK. It's where there's no long-term infiltration, but test purchase and long-term infiltration, the two very different skills. You can do both. However, test purchase is probably the most dangerous because there's no planning or preparation. You don't know how quickly it's going to turn. And some people are switched on. They'll figure you for a cop straight away, and they'll tell you where to go. And if you try and argue the point, then they'll hurt you. They'll try and hurt you. So the test purchase portion of it, I was surprised how easily it was. And I've got to be honest, probably played a lot on the accent. I don't sound Canadian in the slightest, for instance. No. So it worked out pretty well. They weren't buy bus though. So we had to start identifying these people that we were buying off. Because if you buy a bus, you've got to disclose that I'm an undercover police officer, and that would have ended everything. So when we got to a stage where we were making so many purchases that we were falling behind on the paperwork, and there was a team just for paperwork, there was a suggestion made that I go and infiltrate this particular community, the Mafia down on an area called James Street North, which is a Portuguese-Italian community, large Portuguese-Italian community. And I went, sure, why not? Bring it on.
Did you know about these people before you got involved?
I'd seen Donnie Brasco, and I've watched Goodfellas, but you can't prepare yourself for the reality of it. I mean, you've been around, you know. You see portrayals of certain people on TV, and then when you actually get to the reality of it, it's completely different. There are some similarities, but I've got to be honest, it was mostly the rules they follow. I think most movies have got that particular part of it right, but there's no honour among some of these guys. There's a lot of betrayal.
They talk behind each other's backs, and
they do, and they also say things that like they tell me certain people are informants. Don't say anything to such and such, but he's an informant, and I know for a fact he's not, because I know. But it's done to elicit you working with them and not working with anyone else, especially with the work we were doing. We were making a lot of money, so this operation effectively paid for itself. We spent very little taxpayers' money. I was everywhere and into everything.
So how does this begin? Like, they tell you to go infiltrate this mafia family, and so how does it all start?
I've got to be honest, it was an unprofessional shit show from the start. It was very badly done. I think it was done on the cuff, but I don't think this police service was particularly big enough to do an operation like this successfully anyway. And they ended up bringing in the provincial police, which is like the state police. And then it got slightly better. I was hoping to bring on the ICMP, because then not only do you have the money, the federal money, you've got a dedicated cover teams and other bits and pieces. They give me very little. They told me there's a mafia presence. They told me the type of offences they're into. They asked me not to read any material, like the books that have been written on those particular families, and I abided by that. And then I went in clean because I had no preconception of what these people are or what they do or who they are. So any information that we gleaned and we put on paper, well, one, it was A1 because it came from an undercover police officer, but two, it could be corroborated by other intelligence that I wasn't aware of. And that for me was probably one of the only smart moves of the project, because there was no contamination of intelligence. There was no, I didn't go in with a preconceived idea that this guy deals drugs, I'm going to buy drugs off him.
Yeah. So do they tell you walk into this bar and start getting friendly with them?
They because they've seen the work I did with Up in Smoke and the Sandbar, and all the cold calls we did. Cold calls are really difficult. If you get 1 out of 10, you're lucky. We never got refused. Every single person served us drugs. With this, I did demand pictures and some intelligence reports, simply the fact that I started to get suspicious now that perhaps they didn't have the ability for this kind of operation. So what I did was I demanded some some intelligence reports, and photographs and names and the like. And then I spent maybe 12 hours trolling through these pictures, just picture by picture by picture, not looking at the faces or the hair or the hairline, but just the eyes, just the eyes, just the eyes. And then I went out and I went from bar to bar to bar, and I ended up in a place called Pescara's. And Pescara's was like an Italian eatery. And I go in and I order a coffee, and straight away the guy that comes and serves the coffee, I recognize him straight away. From the eyes, just he stood out. We chatted. I played a bit. Then I was looking for an apartment, but I didn't say to him, "I'm looking for an apartment." I sat there with a paper and circled and went on the phone and fuck, no more. Yeah. And he reached out to me and said, "You looking for a place?" I said, "Yeah." But then he started hitting me with questions, and I'm like, "You know what? It's nothing to do with you. I'm good, thanks. I don't need a place off you." And then he came back with a number, and that's how we got into that particular building. They had 4 apartments above, and I rented one of those. But when I got back, I'm going to say he introduced himself as James. No, he introduced himself as Louis. Definitely a rounder. Definitely somebody who can look after himself, and I can look after myself. But this guy just a category higher. And Lou, I sat there for probably another 6 hours going through all the photographs again, and I finally got him. And his name was actually James Lewis Malone. So I went through the J's first, and he didn't pop up, and that's when I went to just go through everything. And his name was James Lewis Malone, and he was a prospect with the Hells Angels at the time. He got patched about, I want to say about 3 months later, he got his full patch. And he was a nightmare.
What do you mean?
He was the one the president was scared of. He was the one that it ended up, Lou got kicked out after about a year, and we had plainclothes officers. I had nothing to do with this part of the operation. We had plainclothes officers shuttling a car, 2 up. So there's 2 males in the car, and the plainclothes officers following the car, and it's going to the clubhouse, the Hells Angels clubhouse. So they pull it before the clubhouse, and they find 12 ounces of coke in it or something like that. But the bikers are in, and they come out and they start to cause running interference. But they're only doing it verbally. But Lou comes out, and Lou's toasted. He's wasted. He was a big cokehead. He was a big drinker. He's wasted, and he starts shoving police officers, and the cops don't want to arrest him because there's 12 bikers there. It turns into an issue, and what's the shove at the end of the day? You know, if that's the best you've got. But in his excitement, trying to run interference for these 2 guys that they've already arrested for the 12 ounces, he turned around and shoved the president of the Hells Angels, and they booted him the next day. Gone.
He shoved the president. Why would he shove the president?
He was wasted. He was agitated. He was coked up. The president told him to calm down, and he turned around and shoved the president 2 hands to the chest, and that was it. He was done. And then about a week later, he went round to where the president worked, because all these guys work. All the Hells Angels work, believe it or not. They've all got jobs.
Yeah.
They're all workers. They're not shy of work. But he went round to the president's workplace and threatened him. Said, "You owe me money. I want the money." And we think he paid up. Lou was a different character.
So where does it go from there? You're at this bar. You meet this guy. He's a little. Does he make you uneasy when you're around him?
No, not at all. I mean, I got on well with Lou, but we think Lou was the one that corrupt police officers told that I was a police officer. Lou was pretty reasonable to get on with. They liked you or hated you, but he was in a position where I'd done deals with him, and if I'd just done a deal with him and he committed a criminal offence, and then somebody else come up and wanted to talk to him about something, he'd literally turn around to you and say, "You need to fuck off now," because it was none of your business. Even though he trusted you and he dealt drugs to you and he knew you were on his side, he just didn't take any risks. And there was a lot of, especially the wise guys, a lot of the wise guys were like that. A lot of the wise guys really knew this stuff. Their operational procedure, when it comes to breaking the law, was pretty good. It's one of the best I've seen.
when you're around this guy Lou, you said another cop told him that you were an undercover agent. Another cop told him that you were an undercover agent.
Way down, long into the operation. So 2 or 3 days after I moved into the apartment, we had there was a party at Pescaro's at this bar eatery. There was a party, and that's when I met all the mafioso for the first time. That's when I met the wise guys. I went to this party, and I was a complete unknown. And looking back, it's probably the stupidest thing I've ever done in my life to walk into this bar, because they're all coked up, and then I'm trying to mingle as much as you can without looking like a cop. And then a Winnebago, the big camper vans, comes screaming down the road. I'm outside on a cigarette, comes screaming down the road, and the brakes slam on. There's smoke everywhere, and there's obviously loads of guys in the back because you hear them fall about. Go, fuck Lou, and Lou's driving, and he gets out. He's a prospect at the time, and he gets out, and they all get out the back, and it's the entire. Well, it's the majority of the HA crew for Hamilton, and they come in. So the Mafia are there, the HA are there, and I'm there. City councillors and the like, and people that shouldn't really be there. And I partied, and I think I was in a place where I was so stressed and pissed off with the unprofessionalism since so far in the short time that we've been doing this. And one of the backers, a guy called Bubba, likes to drink, big guy. And he wouldn't let me drink normally. He wanted me to drink whiskey. You're English, you drink whiskey. And there's certain techniques that we use when we're undercover not to drink, but make it look like we're drinking. And he didn't give me that opportunity. And I was wasted. I was pretty drunk. So by the end of the night, I'm on a table dancing my shirt off with Hell's Angels, and it just fit. It all came together in that one evening. Everybody knew who I was. I told everyone I was called English. He changed to the Englishman, but it just completely fit. So we found ourselves in a position where we were in the thick of things. I lived there. I traded there, as in drugs, smoke, stolen goods, anything I could get my hands on. I'd pretend that I'd stole it, or we found it some other way. And we found ourselves in a position where we were into everybody, and I mean everybody. And it opened up a number of doors because everyone wants to do business with you if you're making money.
Yeah.
And there's always that suspicion there. And there's always the person who comes up to you and goes, you know what, you come from nowhere, you could be a cop. And you're like, yeah, it's better than people think I'm a rat. So if I'm a rat, I'm dead. If I'm a cop,
yeah,
what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Well, I know what they're going to do, but it's not going to be prolonged. It's going to be quick. So we were very fortunate. We got, and it's this. I can tell you this because it's never going to be a play again. We made a contact down at CBSA, so on the border, and we're quite close to the border in Hamilton. We're like 20 minutes away from Niagara Falls, and they started supplying us with cigarettes that have been seized. And cigarettes are a very, very tradable commodity. So I started buying drugs with cigarettes. I started buying stolen property with cigarettes. I put us in a position where we were spending no money on this project. So they didn't have to put a project fund together to go and say, listen, we need this much money, we need this much money. I paid for everything with cigarettes. I'd also have times where I had no money and I was begging for money and trying to borrow. And then I had times where people owed me a hell of a lot of money. So we were probably, when the operation finished, throughout the city, we were probably owed about $60,000. That's how many moves we were making. And it became an issue for the provincial police, the state police, because we were making so much money. There's no bookkeeping for a police service where you actually make money. If you make money, you're supposed to pay tax on it, whether it's illegally made or not. You're supposed to pay taxes on it, and that became a real bugbear for the OPP because they're like, you can't keep making this much money because we're going to have to pay tax on this. We're going to have to show it. We were into everybody. We probably had about 3,000 offences on well over 200 people.
So, but while your time doing this, is there anybody that you busted in the past that has come around?
No, because this is the beautiful thing. I come from the UK.
No, I mean once you go there and you start doing those buys, the buy bus.
We didn't do a buy bus, so we did test purchases. We didn't bust them. So there's no.
Oh no, the cold calls, right?
Yeah. So the cold calls are effectively buy bus or test purchases. So usually I come up to you in the street. I go, can you sort me out? You either tell me to fuck off or you give me a 40-piece. And I take my crack and I skip off, and then you smile because you just made $40, and then 4 burly officers jump on top of you and put you in handcuffs. Okay. With this, what we did was we followed people off because we didn't want to burn the fact this was a UC operation, because we weren't getting refused. So why put it on the street that there's this UC going around arresting everybody with an English accent? So we put it out there that we'd follow these people off, we'd create a case file, and then we'd arrest them at a later date. And it worked pretty well. I think there's only like 4 or 5 people that didn't identify. And even now, I think there's only one person we don't know who it was way back then. And that was a Hispanic guy called Tony. We never found out who this guy was. We could never get him on a buy. He'd just send runners out all the time. So I finally decided if they wanted him out and they wanted to dump him, we'd throw a big buy in. So I'd offer like 3-4 grand on a purchase, because he's not going to trust a runner with that. It's not going to happen. That's the only way to get him out. And he came out, and unfortunately, he saw the coveting and bolted.
Did he get away?
He got away, yeah. We didn't ID him. And even if we'd have ID'd him, it wouldn't matter. There was no evidence tying him to drugs.
So now your time doing this, do you eventually get invited into the clubhouse?
Well, I went to the clubhouse a couple of times. I went to their illegal booze cans as well a couple of times. Nice facilities. They spend some money on these places. The HA was running them. The Mafia was running them all the time. Then I started to get introduced to the older guys, and I found myself in a position where you've got guys that were 70 years old that have been mobsters. The Paleo family, for instance, they've been mobsters. They've been on the street 53 years working, never been arrested. I just walk into their houses, pour myself a brandy and sit down and start watching TV with them, and then walk out. Sometimes I'd never talk to them. I maybe say hello. And we got to that stage where they just didn't care that I was around. But they wanted their piece. And they're like, what are you moving today? Oh, I've got some brandy. Okay, you bring the brandy here. No, I've got to buy it. No, I wasn't asking. You bring the brandy here. Okay, fair enough, yeah. Great evidence. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the brandy cost us. So the brandy, the alcohol, that cost. But I subsidised it with the cigarettes, selling the cigarettes. So the CBSA were really good. They really helped us out in this hop, even though they had no idea what was going on.
Any of these guys, did you ever feel bad for, like, you're about to bust these guys, you know it? Are you like, damn, I feel bad for doing this?
No, that's the job. And I've listened to other UCs, and they say, oh, I had a soft spot for this guy, or I had this guy. When we're going to take him down, I'll tell the guys to be a little rougher. No, I didn't care. I didn't put them in that position. It was just my job to make sure that you've got to understand, Bill. I mean, there's a romanticism around the Mafia. However, these guys would walk into an Italian club, say, that had been there 30 years, same owner, and he's running it, and he's hardly making any money. He does it for the socialization. And they just walk in and go, you're fucking done. And he's like, what? It's our place now, go. And they use it as their social club until they burn into the ground, and then they go move on to another. The protection rackets, again, they don't target drug dealers or the Hells Angels or other Mafia families. They target people that can't stand up to these people. So at the end of the day, they're mostly bullies, as far as I'm concerned. I don't like bullies. So, I mean, there's characters that I miss hanging out with just because of the trouble we got into. There's characters I miss going to the casino with because of the trouble we got into. We were barred from the Fallsview Casino. We were barred from another casino. We were nearly barred from Brantford Casino for fighting with the security. I could hang out with these guys again, but it won't be the same. There's nothing in common between us.
Yeah.
So no, I don't feel bad for them. I don't feel bad for the guy that's speeding outside of school. I give a ticket to. It's just a job. It's we've got rules. If you don't like the rules, run for office and change the rules.
So when you're hanging around with these guys, do they ever ask you to be a part of this club?
What, the Hells Angels?
Yeah.
No. We got burnt pretty early with the Hells Angels. So there was an attempt on my life. It was 4 bangers turn up to try and kill me.
Can you walk me through that?
So I'm in a mob bar. It's called CD Martini's. Just having a drink, and then two brothers come in called the Reardon brothers, and they're probably I've been around serial killers. I've been around rapists. I've been around all these nice people. That it was either Tommy or Shane. I can't remember. But when you looked in his eyes, it was vacant. There was nothing there. There was no compassion. There was no. This was a true psychopath. Okay. But I bought off him. He was one of Tony's runner, the guy that got away. I bought off him maybe 12 times, 15 times. Just keep it going, keep it going, keep it going. And then all of a sudden he shows up at CD Martini's. He's looking at me across the bar, and he's with his brother. And I think, I don't know what's going on, but I don't want these guys telling people in there that I buy crack off them. Because the last thing I want the mob thinking is that I use crack. Same with the Hells Angels. They don't appreciate it. It's not something they associate with. They'll sell it, but they don't want you using it because you're easy to turn.
Yeah.
So I went outside. I got out, went outside for a smoke, and I'm just borderline whether I just leave, jump in my car and go. I just got that feeling. And then they come out through the other door and they come onto the patio area. And one of them says, "Hey, cop." And I went, "What?" And then, boom, somebody hit me from behind. I can take a punch, but that guy rocked my world, the one that hit me from behind. I turned expecting Tyson or Holyfield or some other monster there. And it was just some skinny little kid. He just caught me right. I managed to stay on my feet. We fought for... There was four of them in the end. We fought for maybe 9 minutes, 10 minutes, which is a long time. Oh, fuck, man. Seriously, it was a battle.
Wow.
They pulled knives. They threatened they had a gun. I never saw a gun. And then it sort of petered out because I clipped one and then I clipped another and there was only two left. They were picking themselves up and it sort of teetered out and they went to walk away. And he said something stupid like, "Don't bring a knife to a gunfight," or something like that. I thought, I don't even have a knife. And I managed to get to the apartment. And once in the apartment, I phoned through to the handler. I said, "Listen, did you hear that?" He's like, "No, your wire's down." Okay, great.
Oh, great.
It was always down. I phoned through to the handler. I told him very calmly. He said, "Okay, stay there. What we'll do is we'll get a cruiser to come outside. The cruiser can sit there. We'll put on a... come on, Paul. Brain's slow. We'll put it on a disturbance call. Tell them there's a disturbance so they don't know what's going on. And then you come out, get in the UC car, and then we'll debrief." Okay, fine. So I come out, and I'm all cut up and bruised by now. But I come out, he phones back, says, "The cruiser's outside. Come out, get in your car and go." So I'm like, "All right, fantastic." So I come out of the door, no cruiser. I come down the road, I turn left into the alleyway where the car is, and they're there waiting for me again, same guys. So then we fired again for about another 11 minutes. And then it got to a stage where I thought, these guys are going to kill me. They're really going to kill me. They're not giving up. They've got knives out now. And I think I broke a bottle. I grabbed a bottle off the table and I broke that. I said, "Right, step in, let's go." And I turned from being defensive and being an undercover police officer to somebody who needed to survive and get the fuck out of there. And I think when my attitude changed and the calmness and the fact that I thought, "Yeah, step in, I'm going to stab you." When I got to that stage, that's when they took off. But I'm there fighting with them, and a member of the cover team drives past, looks directly at me, and just keeps on driving.
What?
Oh yeah.
So basically, they
Bill, you should have read the book. You should have read the book. Yeah, they left me.
Don't worry, I'm gonna order
This guy burnt me. He did. He looked directly at me, carried on driving, and then we carried on fighting for about another 5 minutes. And I was a bit of a mess afterwards because the "hey cop" thing threw me. It really, really threw me. Because by then everybody knew me. Everybody. I was all over town. Everybody knew the Englishman. Nobody knew my real name. I refused to tell people. And then it threw me. And so I went back to the debrief. And I think I was already struggling by then. I didn't trust Hamilton police. I thought, now I was thinking we'd been sold out. Cover team, because of what happened. And in hindsight, that officer, I mean, it's come up a couple of times. That officer may well have been drunk because they're all drinking on duty, it turns out. And that's probably why he didn't get out of the car, because you get out of the car when you're drunk and shoot somebody, and there's an investigation, and you go to jail yourself for murder. So I got back to the debrief. I was like a bear with a sore head. One of the sergeants from the OPP said, "Where's the effect of? Did you hurt anyone?" And I just snapped and I went, "Who gives a fuck?" And he's like, "Well, I need to know if somebody got hurt. We need to have an investigation." Because it's a use of force. I'm an on-duty police officer.
Well, they tried to kill you. They tried to kill you. Like,
well, they ended up in jail anyway. They shot a guy in the back of the head with a shotgun. He survived. I met his mum. Nice kid. Shouldn't have been shot. Nothing to do with the drug world or anything like that. Just a mistaken identity. And then they murdered a kid up in a 17-year-old up in Waterdown at a hotel. He owed the money for drugs, and they beat him with a lampshade, and then they put a bullet in his head, and then put a couple in his stomach, and they went down for murder for that. And then when he was in jail, they killed his roommates as well.
wow.
There's somebody I've never seen it be. Even with that, we did that with a serial killer in Camden, and I booked him in as a sergeant, and even he had emotive signs behind his eyes. This guy was just glass. This guy was just a shark. Just no compassion whatsoever, no empathy, just bump. But we had a couple of run-ins with him. We had a nasty run-in with him at his house, which turned into a fight. And it was badly managed from the start. It really was.
So after this fight takes place, you're not trusting your team. Where does it go from there?
So we carry on. The Hells Angels stopped speaking to me. The Hells Angels approached the Mafia and said, "This guy's a cop. We've been told this guy's a cop." The Mafia go, "Not a fucking chance." And I carry on working with the Mafia. Very occasionally I'd speak to the Hells Angels, but very, very occasionally, because they still weren't too sure. I mean, they'd accused me of being a cop. They'd sent these guys after me. It turns out these guys came from the HA, believe it or not.
Oh, so the Hells Angels sent these guys.
So the Hells Angels sent these guys. So when I spoke to Lou Malone, maybe 2013, October 2013, way after this undercover operation had finished, and he's the one that told me that I was sold out by a police inspector, and he confirmed that these guys were sent specifically to scare me off. Only these guys don't scare people off; they kill people. I mean, the Mafia use the Hells Angels. The Hells Angels use the gangbangers, and the gangbangers are disposable as far as everyone's concerned. Which is, they're the young kids that are come from poor houses and have no other option than to get involved in drugs. So they are. Whereas the Mafia have other options. I mean, the parents are rich. They're not. These aren't poor families. The Hells Angels probably the same as the gangbangers. They come from poorer neighborhoods or poorer families, and they find themselves in a place where they want the nice things that the kids on the street have got.
So while you're out there, are there murders going on between the Hells Angels and rivals?
No, it was a pretty peaceful time. I think the only issue was close to a murder. The incident started while I was undercover, and then when the operation finished, so the incident went over a year period. So effectively, you've got a kid that owes money to somebody, and they come to collect. And the kid says, "Listen, I don't have it, and I'm a connected guy." And this other guy says, "I'm a connected guy. I'm connected to the bikers." So this kid goes, "Oh, fuck no, I don't believe you." He says, "Yeah, I'm connected to the bikers." So this kid goes to the Hells Angels, some of who he knows. I says, "Listen, this guy's using your names, dropping your names." So the Hells Angels find this guy and beat the living crap out of him. Only he's not talking about the Hells Angels. He's talking about Satan's Choice. Now, Satan's Choice at the time was run by a guy called Mert Rourke, tough guy. However, probably the toughest guy in Hamilton, the exception of Kenny Robertson, Kenny Murdoch, was a guy called Johnny K9. And Johnny was a wrestler and a Satan's Choice Sergeant at Arms and all these other things. He was in the movies. He wrestled with Hulk Hogan. This was a big guy. This was a guy that was once sent to collect a debt. And when the debtor refused, he held him down and slapped him in the face with his penis until he agreed to pay the debt.
What?
Oh, yeah. Johnny was a character. So K9 and Mert Rourke walked into a full Hells Angels clubhouse and lost the shit. They lost the shit. How the fuck do you think you are? Why are you touching this guy? It's nothing to do with you. Get it sorted. So the Hells Angels are effectively ordered by Satan's Choice to go and murder this kid that gave up the other guy. So it turned into a bit of a nightmare. Well, I'm at home. I don't know this guy. There's a knock at the door. It's this guy. And he's saying, listen, I know who you are. I know what you did. These guys are going to kill me. And I'm like, go to the cop shop. Go to what are you doing at my front door? Go to the police station. I can't go to the cops. They'll kill me for that. So what do you want me to do? He said, you just have to stop them from killing me. So I phoned up Lou Malone. And I said, listen, you can't touch this guy. I know about it now. I'm going to put an intelligence report on. You can't kill him. Don't know what you're talking about. Okay, Lou, well, you've been told.
Who's Lou Malone?
Lou Malone was the biker from the start, the one I infiltrated.
Oh, yeah.
He hated me. He absolutely hated me, and I don't blame him, to be honest. But I said, you can't kill this kid. We know now. It's as simple as that. And I thought that was the end of it. And they got him, and they stabbed him several times, and they beat the shit out of him. And I phone up again and go, what the fuck? And he goes, we didn't kill him. And that was the attitude. That was the mentality. They didn't kill him. This guy, if they killed him, then there's an investigation. He's a victim. If they don't kill him, he's not going to give anything to the cops. He's not going to tell the cops what happened. So these people are. I don't think people realize how dangerous they can become. They see the film, they see the TV shows, but the reality that's pretty dark. It's pretty dangerous.
Who do you think's more dangerous, the mafia members or the bikers?
I could have a good time with the mob. You go out with the mob, you can have a good time. Okay, it very rarely goes wrong. I think one night it went crazy wrong, and people got hurt, and the shootings, and that was just a mess. But that was a birthday, so I'll give them that. The Hells Angels, they'll just grab somebody and stab them for the sake of it. That ends an operation. That's the operation's done, because that's something you've got to report. That's something you've got to arrest on. And yeah, the Hells Angels are probably the most dangerous because they lack the same sensibility as the mob. The Mafia, they keep things pretty close to the chest. It's harder to get information out of them than the HA.
Do you think that's because they drink and like?
Oh no, the mob drank.
No, I'm talking about the bikers. Do you think it's because they partied and?
No, they all drank a big coke.
The mob guys did too.
Oh, please. Oh, they were. I've seen them so wasted. Bumping. This is how I used to get a lot of offences on these guys, because what they do is come on, fit with 20 in, and then they go and get $100 worth of cocaine. Then we go back to my place because it was local, it was right above the bar, and we'd all do a line, and then they'd do a rail, and then they'd be bumping all night.
Would you do one too?
No, God, no, please.
So what would you do? Knock it on the floor?
I'd go last, and I'd wet the. You know what? It doesn't matter, because it's a technique that's still used. So no, I wouldn't do it, but I had a method for collecting it, and then I bag it. And by the time the only concern I had was if they ever tried to test me. That was always in the back of my mind, that they just give me baking powder, and I go, yeah, good stuff. But yeah, I'd go in the bathroom. I'd have baggies in the bathroom. I'd evidence it. I'd put them in different locations throughout the house. If I got with different people, so that I could go back and say, this came off this character, this came off this character, for evidential purposes. So it can never be confused in court. And yeah, I'd take them back, and then the handler would put them all in the same bag, and I'm like, oh, that's that for them, because it gets to court. I'm not telling a lie to say this came from this person. But no, I had a method. It was pretty simple, but it worked every single time. So I'm going to say, anyone who went upstairs with me, I had them on Schedule 1. I had them on coke, supplying, trafficking.
Yeah.
You know what? It's a simple little offence. My views on drugs have changed over the past 30 years.
Why is that?
Because we've not changed anything. Nothing's got better. What have we done? We've just incarcerated people repeatedly for using drugs. And usually it's people of colour that are using drugs, or it's poor people. So I'm starting to think that perhaps it's not a war on drugs, it's a war on poverty or race, or maybe. For me, legalise it all. All the money you spend fighting the war on drugs, put into rehabilitation and education, and because sooner or later, all these guys want off it. All of them. They all want away from that life.
Or they're gonna die while they do it.
Or they're going to die while they're doing it, and that's sad, because it is with a mob. They're there because they're taught to be there from a young age. Their fathers teach them, this is what you do. This is how you find an undercover officer. This is how you find an informant. This is how you behave. You don't talk like that. You talk this way. This is how you fold your money. It's that specific. And their goal is to make these guys wise guys, that get them the button to get them made. Whereas with the Hells Angels, they all fall into it. They start hanging around with it. There's a lot of hang up. I don't know whether you've got any history with the Hells Angels, or you obviously spoke to some in the past.
I've spoke to quite a few. I interviewed a lot of them.
Yeah, so people love the Hells Angels for some reason. Generality, people love the Hells Angels, and you've got a lot of hang-arounds that will never be a prospect, that will never be a Hells Angel, but they let them hang around. They let them stay. They let them party with them, and they let them buy them drinks, and they let them go and get them drugs and women and all these things. And so there's a certain romanticism with the HA as well. But by far, the answer to the question is that the Hells Angels are the most dangerous when it comes to partying. The Mafia, they're going to sit down and talk about killing you. The Hells Angels are just going to do it and worry about it afterwards.
So can you walk me through that shooting with the Mafia?
Which one?
The one that you said that was a party.
No, so it was just a crazy night. It was a birthday of one of the guys. We go into a bar, we go into another bar, we end up in a third bar. We're in the third bar, one of the guys is coked out of his head. I mean, he's just been bumping and bumping and bumping. And he's not even hiding it, he's just doing it in open. He just doesn't care anymore. And then some girls walk in and he corners one of the girls, and he goes and tells her he's in the Mafia and she's coming back to his place, kind of thing. And she's crying her eyes out, and I just can't do that. So I grabbed him by the neck. I grabbed him by the neck. I threw him about a bit. I told her to leave with her friends. She left. I go outside on the patio. I'm pissed. I'm really pissed. I go outside on the patio. He doesn't come to me. He goes to another wise guy, and the wise guy comes to me, and he says, "Yeah, you can't put your hands on a made guy." I'm like,
You're supposed to die for that. You're supposed to die.
No. I'm not in the fucking Mafia.
Yeah, but if anybody puts their hands on a made guy, they're supposed to.
Don't care. I don't care. You disrespect a woman, I don't give a fuck. So he put me in a position where when this other wise guy came over and he told me this, I said, "Yeah, you need to go fuck yourself." I make my own decisions on who I put my hands on. And he died there. That was it. But when we're talking, there's a traffic accident right in front of us, and the guy that gets out is another wise guy that we know. So he's shouting and screaming at the guy that he's running to the back of. And then I'm watching that. Not 30 seconds later, I turn around, and the second wise guy's gone into an argument with a woman. And she said, "Where's the effect? I'll never fuck you in a million years." And goes to walk off with her friends. And you can just see the rage in his face. And she's maybe 60 yards down the road. She's on the sidewalk. And he just charges down and punches her in the back of the head and knocks her clean out. And then carries on running. And I'm like, "Oh my God, it's going crazy." It was his birthday as well. It's going crazy. So I decide I'm out. That tonight somebody's going to die. I don't want to be there for it. I'm out. So I don't even make my excuses. I just disappear. And I'm walking down the road and I'm ready to get my phone out. And I always remember this because I turn the road onto Barton Street, and there's a black guy coming up called Andrew Briscoe. Used to be a drug dealer. Lennox Lewis's cousin. This guy can look after himself. Okay, he used to train with Lewis in Brixton down in London. He can really look after himself. And I saw him punch a guy one day, and 25 minutes later, the guy was still in the same place on the floor, just didn't move. So I'm walking around the corner, I bump into Drew, and I'm like, "Oh, thank fuck, I've seen you. You know, it's crazy up there. I'm going home," kind of thing. He's like, "Right, come and have a beer with me." I'm like, "No, I'm done." He's like, "No, come on, have a beer with me." I said, "All right, fine." So we go to the place called the Zuka Bar, so another bar that they're not there. And I shit you not, we get a beer, we sit down at the back of the bar. We always sit at the back. All these guys sit at the back for obvious reasons. We sit at the back of the bar and we start talking, and I'm not listening to him. I'm looking at the guy that's just walked through the front door with a balaclava on, holding a gun, who just then starts shooting up the bar. So we're at the back door. I know now it's time for me to go home. We're in the alleyway out back, and we're there for maybe 10 minutes. I just want to make sure this guy clears out. He's not some active shooter that's going around shooting, just ramming up people. And as we're leaving the alleyway, we decide it's safe. We're leaving the alleyway. A cop car pulls up, and they jump out, guns drawn. I put my hands up, and Drew puts his hands up, and they go, "You get down," and he gets down and don't talk. They don't even look at me. They handcuff him and they take him away. They thought he was the shooter.
Now, do you have a gun at this time?
Not then, not then, but I did get one. So there was an incident with the Reardons. I was made to go to their address and make a buy, and I didn't like that. How do we know where they live? Well, how are they going to feel about crackheads showing up at the front door? And I went there. So when a UC says, "I'm not going to do that," you need to listen to this person because they really do know. They know what's going on. So I said, "Yeah, I don't feel comfortable doing that." The handler says, "Just do it." I said, "Yeah, you know what? I really don't feel. Just do it." So I went and I did it. I knocked on the door, and Shane came to the door, and again, the glassy eyes, the vacant expression, and his mum was in the background. And she just started doing, "Drug dealers coming to my door, deal the drugs away from the house." She knew what these pieces of shit were. And she starts hitting him and hitting him and hitting him. I'm like, "Oh, dude, I'm out." Yeah. And he's just standing there. He's not putting his hands up or anything. He's just standing there taking the hits. And he shuts the door. Oh, no, he steps outside and shuts the door behind him. And he's fumbling about in his pocket. I'm like, "Yeah, I need to go." And I go to walk away, and two Hispanic guys get out the elevator and come towards us. And they go to Shane. They walk past me and go, "Can we help you?" "Oh, no, I'm leaving, mate." He says, "I think that's best." We go to the elevator. They go into the apartment. She starts screaming at them and hitting them. And they bolt out to come and get me. So I go down the elevator. We go down to the ground floor, the first floor, whatever you want to call it. But I send it back up and I stay in it because I can hear them run down the stairs. So I send it back up. I stay in it. I get out on their floor and I go to walk out past his apartment. He's still in the apartment because I can still hear her slapping him and screaming at him. And then I go down the fire exit stairs at the back. And as I get down to the third stair, these two Hispanic guys come running through the fire exit door at me. And I was perfectly positioned to kick him right in the chest. I was elevated. I kicked down. I put all my weight into it, and he just went down like just completely gasping for air. And then the other guy went into his pocket, and as he went into his pocket, I just grabbed him and I smashed his head right into the concrete wall. And he went down. I put him in the recovery position. Then I went into his pocket and I pulled out a blade, but it was a blunt, fucking rusty blade. He was going to stab me with a blunt blade. And I walk out and I throw it in a dumpster and I go back to the handler and I said, "Yeah, I'm not doing that again. I'm not doing it unarmed." So they went and they got me a little 25 caliber pistol. It was all beat up and beat to shit. And I went up to Aurelia and I did the shoot with it. And you know what? It worked. It threw lead out. So I was more than happy with it. But I didn't like carrying it. I only carried it a couple of times because if people see you carrying a gun, then they get a lot braver with other people. So you damned if you do, you damned if you don't. You can't really be armed as a UC because it's going to put you in a position where they might ask you to do something that you can't do.
Yeah.
So,
did you ever have to pull the gun out?
No, God no. No. I mean,
how many altercations do you think you got into during this
undercover operation?
Yeah.
Are we talking about beatings that I give people as well for money?
Yeah.
Maybe 15.
15?
Yeah, I know. Not many. 2-year period.
That's a lot.
You think?
Some people don't get into any, you know?
Yeah, it's a different world though, is it not? It's, you know what? Be a cop. You go out on patrol. You might get into 2 a night. It depends on the calls. Yeah, 15. I got a bit of a reputation of collecting cash. And so I go around and collect cash. And people needed a slap to encourage them. However, the alternative is them sending somebody else around who's going to take it too far and kill them. So there was a guy he got a real beating off me. He was a crack dealer, but I put him in the middle of the street, stopped traffic for this one, just so that everybody could see, everybody. And then I'd be really calm. And Bill, a lot of this was humor, a lot of this was joking, a lot of this was breaking balls. I rib these guys all the time. They rib me. They come back. Like one guy shows up, he's got his head shaved. His head's completely shaved. And I'm like, "What are you doing? Your oncologist hate you?" And then Tony says something, and then Ange says something, and he's like, No. Stop breaking my balls. It's serious. Like, "Well, what's going on?" "Well, I've got to go and see my kids." "You shave your head for that?" "Well, yeah, they're going to test my hair for cocaine." "So you shave your head?" He's like, Yeah, I shave my head, so they can't test my hair now. They You can't not let me see my kids if you can't prove I'm using cocaine. I'm like, right, okay, why don't you stop using cocaine? He's like, yeah, I can't do that. At the time, he's doing a line off a parking ticket that he's pulled off the front of his car. While we're talking, okay. So then I say to him, what about your balls? He says, you what? I said, what about your balls? They can take a pube. Oh, I've got to go. And he took off. And we went to shave his balls. So, I mean, the other guy walks out, was Angie supposed to give me a lift? And I'm like, I want to shave his balls. He's like, okay, not Bill, not a stutter, not a pause. He went, all right, can you take me up to the Blue Martini? I'm like, yeah, fine. And that's where we go and get our drugs. We take it back to my place, we step on it, and then we take it down to, and we sell it somewhere else, kind of thing. But they're crazy, and at the same time, they're. I mean, the guy that shaved his head, he went out to knife someone about 3 years ago, killed him, got done for manslaughter, got time served. He's out maybe on probation for manslaughter, maybe 2 months, and he gets caught with $1.3 million worth of stolen cars.
What?
Yeah, these guys, they don't know when to stop. And it's all about the money. All about the money. Everything.
But you said that the guy downstairs from the bar, right? The bar where you were living above, he found out that you were kind of working undercover.
So this is what happened. He didn't actually own the bar. He was a partner in it with another biker and with a city councillor, right? So the city councillor is the one taking the rent off me. The city councillor is the one there at the parties. The city councillor is the one cleaning coke up off the table in the morning, kind of thing, saying, oh, dude, guys, you can't leave this shit here, you get me in trouble, kind of thing. This is a city councillor. So we hit into the city councillor for, we offered him a bribe. We wanted a taxi license plate. And we've been told he was selling them. So we offered him 25 grand. Or he asked us for 25 grand. And we said, yeah, we can cover that. And then at the same time, the OPP, the provincial police, went and did a warrant on his office for another bribe matter. So it burnt us on that. So we put a camera in a lamppost across from Pescaris, and they put it in at 3 o'clock in the morning. And Bill, I've put tech equipment in before. I'm not the best, but I've put equipment in before. I can do it. And the tech guy showed me the lamp standard that the camera was in, and I looked at it, and I couldn't see the camera. It was really good. It was a nice job. And he put it in at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I go down there maybe lunchtime the next day, and everyone stood around. And I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, cops put a camera in the lamppost last night. I'm like, how the fuck do you know that? It's there. Don't worry about it, but it's there. I'm like, all right, fine. So I go in. As I'm going into my apartment, I look to the left, and there's a big sign on the restaurant door, out of business. I'm like, what the hell? Where have they gone? Oh, camera taken off. So the city council obviously knew about it. The Lou Malone, the Hells Angels knew about it, and so it came from somewhere. And even the tech guy said it can only have come from inside the service. There's no way it came from anywhere else. We were being sold out left, right, and centre. And then when we finally,
right?
Oh yeah. And the guy we suspected doing it, he went to jail for 12 months for fraud and for a lot of other things. He was an inspector, but a lot of them went to jail. There's a staff sergeant that got arrested for doing coke and stealing from evidence, and he was homicide. And they don't care. And these people were reported. They put it in a position where, okay, thanks, you've told us about it now. We'll look after it, and then they do nothing about it. And then that snowball turns into a mountain, and they're left dealing with the aftermath of it, with the media and everything, instead of just stomping out in the first place. So we were definitely sold out, definitely.
Do you think the council member did it, sold you out? Because he could have found out. Right. He could have found out, right?
This is what happened. When he disappeared, I go to a bar called Barangas. So we go and ask for the $25,000 money off the chief, because that's a lot of money even for a buy. We need that money. So the staff sergeant, guy called Mike Thomas, approaches the chief and goes, listen, we need $25,000 bribe. Tell me about it. Well, city council has offered our EUC a taxi license plate for 25 grand. Okay, all right, yeah, we can do that. Who's the councillor? So he tells him the name of the councillor, and the chief goes, no, we're done. I didn't authorise this investigation. Okay, so keep that in mind. 2 weeks later, I'm with the mob on a patio of a bar called Barangas down on the Lake Ontario. Nice bar. And I woke up, and that councillor sat there at a table. the chair of the police services board, so the chief's boss is there at the table, and the mayor at the time of the city is there at the table. All right. As we're sat there, the police chief comes and joins them. The very one we asked for the money to do the buying. So it was convoluted. It was fucked up, Bill. It really was. It really was. There should have been an inquiry into everything. I made some.
So
pretty...
these people definitely are involved with the mob, the bikers.
100%.
They're linked in somehow.
100%. 100%. And I mean, you've got to look back at the history of the city. Hamilton has a pretty unique history when it comes to the mafia. You don't think Canada and think of the mafia. However, when Al Capone was running booze across the border, it was all coming from a guy called Rocco Perry from Hamilton. So there's a history there. I was working with guys whose fathers worked directly for Al Capone. So Hamilton's got this massive history, and Hamilton's not controlled by Canada. Hamilton's controlled by Buffalo, 100%. The reach is pretty far. The reach is pretty far.
So were you around any notable people, like people with crazy names?
What do you mean?
Like well-known people that would be known.
Oh yeah, the Papalia crime family, the Lupinos, the Violis. Yeah, I mean, you got to understand that all these lower level mob guys are watching me just walk into mob bosses' houses, sit down and have a drink, not say a fucking word, and walk out and just, yeah, guys, I'm off. And it threw them. And they'd ask every now and again, they'd say, what are you doing? What are you doing with these guys? Because they want in. They want to know what money I'm making. I've obviously got an angle. Yeah. And I just simply, and it became very apparent at the beginning, this is what I should do. I just turn around and say, go and ask them. Because I know for a fact they're not going to a mob boss and saying, yeah, what are you doing with this guy?
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. So it was a pretty good play. The entire operation was a really good play. It was a really, really good play, but it wasn't because of the assistance of Hamilton Police. We just got lucky with the party at the beginning. We got lucky with a few instances where I probably could have died, that I didn't die, and we got lucky with the acceptance they had for me.
When you show them you're gonna fight and you're drinking with them, it kind of they let their guard down, right?
They do, but then it comes back all of a sudden, especially when they're on coke. That's what I found. Try and avoid them when they're on coke. I mean, one of them got tickets to an ice hockey game, and I agreed to go, and it was in Toronto, and I knew nothing about ice hockey, and it was between the Maple Leafs and the Canadiens. And when I told the cover team, yeah, we're gonna have to go, you're gonna have to cut me off down to this ice hockey thing in Toronto, they're all like, yay! It's the first time I'd seen excitement because they get to go and watch the game. But I go in and I think T's team was the Canadiens, and I go in there and they lose. Do you follow hockey?
No.
I can't follow the puck. The puck's so fast and it's so small. Like, what the hell's going on? And everyone cheers, and I'm like, yay! And I don't know what's going on. And but Tony was wasted. I mean, really, really bad. I've never seen him that bad. He was absolutely wasted, and he was hitting the beers, and he was hitting the coke. He was bumping, and they lose, and he's pissed. I'm like, why are you so pissed? They lost. I said, so we'll win next time. Don't worry about it. It's a game. It doesn't make any difference. So we go across to a bar, across the road. It's Canadians he supported, the Canadians, the Montreal Canadiens. We'll go across to the bar and on Front Street in Toronto, and there's loads of guys in there. They're all Maple Leafs fans, and he's there with his red shirt on, and we go in and somebody says something, and that's it. He's wanted to fight them, but he's a mobster. He doesn't fight 3 or 4 people at once. He gets a knife out, and that's what he did. He had a flick knife. He had it by the side of the leg, and this idiot didn't see it. He really didn't see it. And it ended up with me grabbing this guy by the throat and dragging him outside and threatening him. Tony was going to kill him. Tony would have stabbed him.
So if you step in and kind of diffuse the situation.
And usually Tony would take offense, but he was so fucking wasted. He didn't say anything. He literally went to it. Because I threw this guy against an ATM. So when I pulled him out by his throat, I got him right behind the throat. I threw him against an ATM. And the ATM shifted. I hit him that hard, the ATM. And I go back in, and I expect an argument. I tell them to leave. I tell him to go and get his mates and leave, and he does. I say, don't finish your drink, just fucking go. And he does. And I go back in, I expect an argument from Tony. Don't get involved in my matters, etc., etc. And he doesn't. He just stood there looking at me. He goes, you know what? What? You know, when you threw that guy into that ATM machine? I said, yeah. He said, it moved. I'm like, right. He said, we could take it. So we're literally, not 3 minutes later, we're trying to lift this ATM machine at the lobby away because it's what he wanted to do and I wanted to play along. And the manager comes out, the manager gets threatened and we decide to leave. But it was just imagine the craziest time, and then it was time and time again. But then this is over 2 years. So there was times when nothing happened for a week and it was glorious. It was glorious. There was no paperwork, there's no notes. It was just chill.
Are you kicking money up to the top guys in the mob?
I'm not a mobster. You want to make money off me, that's fine, but I make money as well. I'm not a mobster. I went to the Brick. Do you have the Brick in America? Furniture store.
They have them.
Yeah, so it's a furniture store called the Brick, but they do electronics as well. And I go in there, and I've got maybe 3 or 4 grand from smokes that I've sold. And I go in there, and they've got DVD players on $49. And I'm like, okay, I'll take 3 off you. So I put them in the back of a car. And I drive my UC car down there, and then there's an old guy, a wise guy, he's a capo. He says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I just picked up some DVD players. You want a DVD player?" He's like, "Yeah." So he looks in. He said, "How much?" I said, $90. He's like, "No. I'll give you 80. I'll give you 240 for all 3." I'm like, "Okay then." So I made $110 or something like that. So I'm like, "Great." He says, "Can you get any more?" I'm like, "Just hang on, I'll phone my contact." So literally in front of me, I phone the Brick. Like, yeah, how many more DVD players have you got? She says 22. I said, yeah, hold them all for me. I'm coming for them now. So I turn around to her and said 22. He's like, how much each? So I give him a price, and then I made another $400 off the guy. So, but this is the same guy. I had cigarette lighters. Well, I got a lot of cigarette lighters. We went and bought them, and this is a guy driving a $100,000 truck. He's got gold jewelry on. He's got money. He's always got a wad on him. And he looks in the back of the car. He wants to see what I've got today because I used to sell stolen stuff out of the car. He wants to see what I've got today, and he says, "How much you want for the cigarette lighters?" I said, "No, I've got to buy it." He said, "No, I'm not asking. How much you want for the cigarette lighters?" I'm like, 45. He's like, "Okay." He literally takes them off me, gives me $45. He walks across the road to the 5-star store or whatever it was called. It was a little convenience store across the road. He walks in there. He comes out, Bill, and he shows me $47, puts it in his pocket and walks off. He made $2. He was so happy with himself. It's all about these guys. So these guys, let me put it this way: these guys could be sat in the living room on a sofa made of money, watching a TV made of money, and smoking money, and they could see $1 they could steal outside. They go and steal it because that's the nature. That's the nature. They're always mobsters.
Do you think they're tightwads with their money?
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't want to spend it.
No, they don't want to spend. No. Bikers are different. Bikers will throw money around. The mobsters are like, I have no money on me. Can you front me 20? And you know they're sat on $500 in the back pocket. Do you know what I mean? So they are what they are. They're all about the dollar. They're all about the dollar. But they're very specific. They're very specific in everything they do. They're a lot. Probably, I've worked the Albanians. I've worked the Russians. The Italians are probably the most efficient.
So there were a lot of killings in the Mafia in recent years in Canada.
Yeah. So those are all the guys I worked undercover on. So effectively, the nature of the operation, when it changed from buy bust, the nature of the operation, there was 2 brothers in jail for a homicide back in '98, I want to say. I think May '98, they killed Johnny Papalia, who was a big boss in Canada at the time. They had him killed. They used a guy called Kenny Murdoch, and that was one of 3 homicides. And they pled guilty to conspiracy or something like that. They went to jail for 8 years, 10 years. The goal of the operation was for me to be in a position when they got out to put them straight back in jail. Because these guys are wise guys. These guys are not guys that come out and go, you know what, I'm going to lead the normal life now. I'm going to take the kids to baseball, and they're not. So that was the target operation. They got out on October the 10th, I believe, 2006. The operation went down about a week before. It got burnt. It was just very coincidental. So Ange was the younger brother. I think 2017, he got clipped on his driveway in front of his kids. Pat was the older brother.
I remember seeing that. There's a video.
Yeah, Pat got clipped in a parking lot, his lawyer's parking lot, but survived. He got shot in the face and survived. And then I think they got him a year later. They plugged him in Burlington. So, you know what? No threat. Lou Malone, exactly the same. He took a shotgun to the face. So all these guys are dead or in jail.
And then there was that black guy that had association with the Hells Angels, Greg. Was his name Gregory?
Greg?
Yeah.
Give me a clue.
Let me see.
It was Greg Birch, but he was the president. He wasn't black.
Let me see. Greg Woolley. Gregory Woolley.
Don't know.
No, he was killed in November 2003. He was a Haitian-born Canadian mobster associated with the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club.
Well, don't know him, but I didn't get to Canada until 2005.
Now, did you have any association?
There's a massive history before I got to Canada. This isn't just started.
Yeah.
I'm not the catalyst for this, but I mean, like with K9, Johnny K9 that I told you about, that raging psychopath. He went to bomb the Hells Angels clubhouse down in Sarnia. So he took a bomb, and he drove down there on his bike, and he was going to bomb the clubhouse. And he gets there, and his intention is to knock on the door, and when they open the door, throw the bomb in. Okay, this is how he thinks. There's nobody in. The place is vacant. So what does he do? He takes the bomb, and he takes it down to Sarnia police station, and he puts it outside the police station and blows up the police station. He didn't want to waste it. You've got to. He's thinking. You've got to imagine that sometimes these people don't think like you or I would. They know the rules don't apply, but they don't think like you or I would. But K9 was unique when it came to especially to bikers. But yeah, I don't know. I've heard the name Greg Woolley, but I don't know anything about him. I had nothing to do with him. Never part of the investigation.
It says Ontario. He was in Ontario.
Yeah, same. But there's a number of clubhouses throughout Ontario.
So now, who was the president
of the Hells Angels at the time? Greg Birch. Greg Birch.
And was he? How was he when you met him?
I met him 4 or 5 times. Very quiet. Very quiet. But that night, he turned up that night for the party. He was in the back of the Winnebago. And he went straight in, sat with a guy called Pinot Avignon. And Pinot's definitely a capo, if not a boss now. And Pinot was there when Pat was killed. And Pinot did time for a murder. I think a conspiracy to commit murder. Dominic Racco, way back in the day, back in the 90s. They killed this guy out on the railroad tracks in Burlington. He owed money to the wrong people. And even though he was a made guy and his dad was a big mobster, when his dad died and he still owed this money, they went to collect and he didn't have it, so they killed him.
Does the Rock Machine have a presence around that area too?
Give me a second. I never dealt with them. I've got to be honest. I mean, even Satan's tried to make a comeback when I was undercover, and then for the year afterwards. And they just got destroyed by the Hells Angels. They got eaten up by the Hells Angels. And a lot of these guys know each other. They've been in gangs together, which makes it a lot easier for it to get eaten up and taken out or taken over. So the Red Devils were there, and the Red Devils is the puppet club for the Hells Angels. Yeah. And the Red Devils is the first one. They were formed in the 40s or something like that in Hamilton. So it's pretty famous for that. But the Red Devils were the first one, and then the Hells Angels came about. But so the Hells Angels, I don't know whether you know the script with outlaw bike gangs. There's a lot of rules, and you become a prospect for a year, and then you get fully patched, and you become a Hells Angel. But when you're from the Red Devils, you don't go through the prospect stage. They don't make you a prospect. There's a lot of embarrassment. There's a lot of hazing with the prospects. There's a lot of bad treatment as well, and then everybody's got to vote positively for you to join and become a Hells Angel. So if you're with the Red Devils, and you're a fully patched member of the Red Devils, you become what's called a striker, and you go straight into the club as a striker, and then after a year you get your patch, so you don't have to go through the hazing and all the bullshit.
Yeah.
But they're pretty efficient at what they do. They are, but it's like I said, the mob are the most organised.
Have you
So
seen them treat? Have you seen them treat their prospects bad?
They did. You know what? I have, not in Ontario, but back in the UK. However, Lou Malone was a prospect, and with the exception of him buying them a few drinks and driving the Winnebago when he was clearly drunk and high, they didn't treat him badly. But there's a real reason behind that.
Because he was a little.
He was Lou was a different kettle of fish.
A tough guy, right?
He was he was a handy guy. He was a handy guy.
So the Mafia and the bikers had a alliance where they would sell drugs up in Canada, and that alliance got broke somehow, and they started going to war where they were killing each other. Did you?
I think that was out in Montreal. I know very little about it. Yeah, so you got to imagine, especially with a mob, one wrong word can put you in a stage of war with another family. There's got to be a lot of respect. It's got to work both ways. And when these people don't like each other, they'll still do business together, but they'll let them know they don't like each other. It's only when you step across a line. And I think with the mob, it's daughters, it's wives, it's disrespect. You screw somebody over on a deal with a mob, they're not going to come after you and kill you. They're going to go to the bosses and they're going to say to the bosses, listen, this guy needs taxing. And then they're all going to have a sit down and they're all going to be brought together, and a boss is going to tell his guy that this is what you're going to do. You're going to pay him 40 grand. And they're going to do it. They're not going to disagree with the boss's orders. Simple as that. So I never really saw any of it. But the Hells Angels and the Mafia were really tight. They were really tight. That night we partied. They were really tight. There was no issues. There was no fighting. There was just party.
So when did this whole undercover operation come to an end?
So we sat at home. We've got family over from the UK. I'm making plans, extensive plans that I've not told the police about. I started making notes in the notebook. I knew we'd been sold out, but I also knew the behaviour was disgusting. Some of the things they were doing. They were turning up at debriefs drunk. So I knew the cover team had been drinking. Well, if you're drinking, you're not covering me off. And there was an incident where a guy comes to pick me up. And what I do is, you're part of my cover team, Bill. I'm going to give you a heads up. So I'm going to break off, and this guy wants to go for a drive. I'm going to say, yeah, give me a second. Let me get some cash. And I'm go, all right, Bill, I'm moving. Okay, don't know where I'm going. This is the vehicle I'm in. And then this guy turns up. He's like, Englishman, get in. I'm like, no, okay, I need to go piss. He's like, no, get in. I'm like, no, I need no cash. He's like, no, I've got money. Don't worry, get in. So we get in and we drive. And I'm giving commentary as we're going, because we've never been this way. Why are we going north on James Street? Why are we turning left on Smith Street? Why are we going right on Robert Street? I'm giving commentary so that they can hear on the wire. And he's getting really suspicious. Not of me, but he seems suspicious. And then he drives down the street and he reverses all the way down the street, the entire street. And that's an anti-surveillance move. Okay? And then he turns right, and then he turns left, and I'm starting to get a bit worried now. And then he turns into a harbour area. And as he turns, I've not been down there before. As he turns in, it's a fish and chip shop. It's a fish and chip shop called Hutch's. I'm like, oh, he's taking me for dinner. He's not going to murder me. But as we pull in, I'm on my phone like that, trying to ignore where we're going. When we pull in, and he goes, cops. And I'm thinking, oh, shit. I look up because I'm expecting to see a uniform there. And I'm hoping it's not somebody that I met briefly for the time I was in training. And it's not. It's the entire cover team in the restaurant eating. The entire cover team. And he turned to me, he looked at me, and he went, you really don't fucking like them, do you? I went, no, I could literally beat the shit out of those fucking now. And it was the truth. They just abandoned the post. They didn't give a shit. So it got to debrief, and I'm like, I'm the probationer. Okay, I'm still a sergeant in the Met, but I'm the probationer here. Do you know what I mean? So it got to debrief. I'm like, just keep your mouth shut. Keep your mouth shut, do your job. And they started on me. And it turned really bad. It turned really nasty. Why? I think they said, well, why didn't you give us a heads up you were leaving? Well, there wasn't the opportunity, Bill. It wasn't there. Sometimes that happens, but you don't expect your cover team to be eating away from the post. So I said something like, why is it my fault you were having dinner with your girlfriends, kind of thing, and it went really south really quickly. But I was to a stage then where I was more mobster than I was cop. I was more mobster than I was cop. I was more aggressive. I was more assertive when it came to parking spaces or restaurant tables or things like that. And these guys go into a restaurant, they're getting a table. You're giving them a table. It's not.
It started to rub off on you, right?
It did in a way, and there was never any kind of deprogramming. There's never any assistance afterwards, and I think I needed that because it got real dark for a long time. And when I went back to uniform, I didn't trust anybody, and it turns out the cover team have been going back. I think there was an element of jealousy as well, but the cover team had been going back telling everyone what an asshole I was. And so when I got back to uniform and I started working with guys, they're like, "I got told you're an asshole. You're okay." I'm like, "No, I am an asshole, but I just want to work and go home," kind of thing. So they sort of destroyed the career before I even got started in uniform. And there were many attempts to get me to leave, and I think it's because there was so much corruption there. And I started to put the pieces together. I started to go out and interview people. I started to stop people that were mobsters and Hell's Angels, and I'd pull them over and I'd ask them questions and just to gauge a reaction. And that's when I started to make extensive notes about corruption within Hamilton Police Service, and it was extensive. It was disgusting, but it came from that 1920s, 1930s period when all these guys were on the take anyway, because they all worked for Al Capone. Because you think the mob just did, no, the cops were turning a blind eye to everything that was going on. It's as simple as that. And that's something that does get handed over from police officer to police officer. So some of the sources that they hand over to younger officers, and these sources aren't really sources, they're compromised, these people. But yeah, it wasn't, we weren't a good employment fit. I don't lie, I don't cheat, definitely don't deal drugs, and I don't hit people for no reason. And that's what I started to find, that's what I started to see. And there's always a justification that, well, this is Hamilton. Hamilton's a rough city, this is Hamilton. And I'm thinking, it's rough and people can harm themselves. Go to Moss Side in Manchester, go to Brixton in London. Those are rough cities. The difference is you've got guns, they don't have guns over there, they stab you. So, and then south of the border, I mean, please, some of the cities south of the border, they make Hamilton look decidedly nice. I mean, there's homicides in Hamilton, they're few and far between, and you go down to a place like Baltimore or Chicago, and they're handling 25, 30 homicides a weekend. So they're literally writing off homicides. This is what they do, they write off homicides on a Monday morning. Yeah, we'll never solve this one, written off. We'll never solve this one, written off. And they try and solve the ones they can solve. So, yeah, you can try and justify it. You can try and say, well, it's this, it's that. But I think the corruption does have a lot to do with PTSD. Officers see a lot, they do a lot. And I don't think there's no assistance whatsoever. There's nothing to help a cop that's hurting. I just found out this morning, I mean, obviously the book got released and people are buying it in the UK. And I had an officer in the UK, good officer, lazy at times, like to hide in calls every now and again, needed a bit of a push every now and again, but very good. It's the kind of officer I can give her a call and I know it won't be an issue. This isn't going to come and bite me on the ass, and sometimes I won't even check the report, I just authorize them and put them through. But she had issues. She went to a call way back at the beginning of her service and it really affected her badly, and it continued throughout her service. And then she got a supervisor that I haven't spoken to her for about 5 years, but she got a supervisor that wasn't too nice. He was very by the book, and well, you can't be. When it comes to mental health, you can't be by the book. It's not how it works. It's not how the brain works. And I just found out today she hung herself 2 years ago. I'm gutted. It's crazy. It really is. But she wrote a letter before she hung herself saying this is effectively because of bullying. So if you turn around and say to a police officer, yeah, I don't think you've got mental health issues, you're bluffing it, and then they go and hang themselves, I guarantee they probably did have mental health issues. So Hamilton Police is a very corrupt police service. A lot of good officers, don't get me wrong. They still reach out, they still talk to me, they're still fed up with it. But it's the few officers that make it undesirable for the others to stay there. And I've got officers with 20 years service that reach out and go, listen, I've only got 10 years to do. After you 10 years, you get less in Canada. You get less for a homicide. You only get 8 years for a homicide in Canada. So, oh yeah.
So after the undercover operation is over, have you ever ran into any of these people, like the bikers or the mob guys?
So I chased down Lou Malone. I got something on Lou Malone. He wouldn't speak to cops. I got something really bad on him, and I started to threaten to release what I had to bikers and to his associates, etc. Even though it wasn't Hell's Angels anymore. He started a new gang called Ruthless, and they all had tattoos, Ruthless, on their arm, so we knew who they were. Stupid, like having burglar written on your arm. But I got something on him, and then he had a number of massage parlors as well. So what I did was I started to hit those. I started to hit the punters from those. And then one day he just told me. He came out and he told me. We met at the court, and he told me exactly who sold me out, and they suspected. They didn't know it was me because we didn't have a name, and this guy had been described as Scottish and blonde hair, and well, that's not me. But I never met this inspector. He was in charge of investigative services at the time, and I got this information off him, and I went to intelligence. The handler was intelligence at the time. I told him I knew, and then later that day he resigned, and he put out a really weird resignation email, something like, "I'm very proud of my 34 years of service, etc., etc., etc." And then I'm going to say about 3 months after that, they were pressed to arrest him, and he got arrested. I think it was like 630 charges, and then he pled out to one. He got a 12-month suspended sentence because he's a police officer, and then they found house arrest, 12 months house arrest, and they found him on the golf course, and they arrested him and they put him in jail. So
he ends up going to jail anyway.
He went to jail. I think he did like 6 months or something like that. But he hurt a lot of people. He spent a lot of taxpayers' monies on himself. And, he burnt us. He's definitely the one that burnt us.
Now, do you still live in the same area?
So my place is up in Niagara Falls. They know where it is. I mean, when I had the farm, I had a 42-acre farm in Hamilton. I had a guy that lived next door that was tied into the Italians, and then the president of the Hells Angels, his cousin lived across the road, and then 2 doors down was another Hells Angels sister. When I had the farm, I had a 42-acre farm in Hamilton. I had a guy that lived next door that was tied into the Italians, and then the president of the Hells Angels, his cousin lived across the road, and then 2 doors down was another Hells Angels sister. So I'd see him every week. They'd come down there every week, and they've no issue. Wise guys, bikers, everyone thinks you hear all these stuff. They told me they put contracts out on me, but all the guys that they told me put contracts out on me are now dead anyway. So there's nobody's paid this money. But wise guys and bikers aren't stupid. They're not stupid people. You don't get patched if you're stupid. You don't get made. You don't get made if you're stupid. These are all smart people. These are all alpha males, but they're all smart people. And they're not going to go to jail to prove a point. It's as simple as that. They've no interest in it. The deal's done. I spoke to one of the bikers, and he effectively turned around and said, "We're loving this." And I said, "Why is that?" They said, "Because it's cop against cop. You're destroying them. We love it." So, I mean, with the Mafia, when I'd meet with the Papalias, the old guys, and when we would chat, they'd tell me about corrupt cops. They fucking hate them, though. They hate them. And then he says, on one, you remember that cop, that Welsh guy? And Jackie Buckle says, yeah, I remember him. And he said, you remember when he came up and dug up your mum's garden? He said, yeah, I remember that. Got a warrant to dig up the garden because they thought they'd put a body there. Okay. And he turned around to me and went, yeah, good guy, though, good guy. And he went, yeah, good guy. Because he wasn't corrupt.
Because they're out shaking down people and the cops are shaking them down, right?
Yeah. And that's the job. And they're the first to admit that. And if they get caught, they get caught. They're the first to admit it's on them. Their job's to not get. The first job's to make money. The second job's to pretend the Mafia doesn't exist. And the third job's not to get caught. It's as simple as that. And the majority of them are pretty good at all of it. So
How often would you see these guys admit that they were in the mafia?
Never.
No, you said that one guy said, I'm in the mafia. He told
Yeah,
that
no.
girl.
Absolutely wired. I mean, absolutely wired. And it's her. He told her. So he cornered her, and he told her he's in the mafia. And then when I went over, she said to me, "He says he's in the mafia," kind of thing. But she's got tears running down her eyes, and that's when it just went a bit pear shaped. And
Like they weren't even supposed to tell you that they're in part of the
they
mafia.
never. Nobody ever did.
No.
Nobody ever did. Nobody would ever admit it. And I brought it up with the old guys. I brought it up. I made a joke of it. I'm like, how do I join? He's like, I think you've got to be blessed by God. You've got to be Italian. So yeah, I'm not Italian. So, dick's too big.
So what made you want to write a book?
I didn't. So I did a full disclosure. I wrote it from my head. My head wasn't in a good place. I wrote maybe 180,000 words. And it was enjoyable. There was no chronology to it. It was all over the place. But I found myself in a position where it helped psychologically, cathartically. It helped to put it on paper. And then at 2022, I got fired. So I filed a lawsuit against the police. And
Why'd you get fired? Why'd you get fired?
Get to that. I filed a lawsuit against the police. It went on in court for about 8 years, and the police were chastised by the courts. The court said, "You're not following the rule of law." This is to the police. "You're not following the rule of law." Another $40,000 for the Mannings. "You're not following the rule of law." Another $20,000 for the Mannings in costs. And then we got to a stage where I realised they could drag this out for another 10 years because it's not their money. It's Hamilton taxpayers' money. They don't care. They could drag this out for another 8 to 10 years, and they still not provide disclosure in 8 years. So we'd ask for documents. In the first year, you ask for documents, they're supposed to provide them. That's part of discovery. And they not provided anything. And it got to the stage where I was asking them for stuff I already had, for them to turn around and say, "Oh, this never existed." And then me go in court, oh, I found a copy. And show them up for the liars they are. And then an opportunity came to resolve the lawsuits. And we resolved the lawsuit to the satisfaction of both parties. So there's no longer a lawsuit, okay? And then I get wages until I'm 65. So I get paid until I'm 65 full wages, right? Then I want to say about a week later, after we resolved the lawsuit to the satisfaction, I got about 400 police act charges in the mail. And they said they were going ahead with 8 of the charges. So 6 of those charges were me releasing information online about the city councillor that we were discussing earlier and the bribery. That proved that he did it. 4 of them were me releasing information. 2 weren't even my posts. They were some other person's post that they thought I'd done. And then 1 was me telling the cheat to go fuck himself, which in hindsight, you know what? If I got away with that, everyone would tell the bosses to go fuck themselves. So perhaps, yeah, they were right to chastise me for that. And the other one was going after that city council again, calling him a cocksucker, and it was taken out of It was taken out of conference. Effectively, he turned around and said he attacked the gay community. And again, you attack a community that's smaller than you and weaker than you, the way it's perceived, then you're a bully. So I put something like, I don't know why this council is attacking the gay community because he's the biggest cocksucker in the city. And he took offence to that for some reason. I have no idea. So they had a police hearing. I didn't get involved in it in the slightest because I've got my wages till I'm 65. Why would I get involved? And then they fired me, and it was the media that told me I'd been fired for gross misconduct.
Yeah, but would you want to be working for them anyway? Because once this is going on,
this is what I said. They were emailing probably 4 times a day, asking me to stop tweeting. I went to the police, the local police, and said, "You've got to stop these guys from emailing me. This is an employment issue. They've no right to be emailing me like this." And it was constant. And then the day that it was a report, they didn't even tell me I'd been fired. I still got my badge and everything. It was the day I got fired. A reporter contacted me and said, "Have you got any comment?" I'm like, "Wow, what's going on?" They said, "Oh, you've been fired." "Oh, all right, okay, fine." And Bill, I thought, fucking great. Everything lifted. The only time I felt better is when I released the book the other week. because everybody knows now. Everybody knows the truth. There's no hiding from it. Yeah? They can't come out and say I'm lying because I'm going to sue the shit out of them for libel. I'm not a liar. Everything in there is 100% truthful. So it was a release. It was nice when they fired me. It's nice to be getting paid till I'm 65 as well, because that stands. And the resolution was nice as well. However, what they do is they tell a story. They go around. This is police chiefs and board members. They'll go around and say, "Oh, this guy's crazy. Be careful. You speak to him." They'll tell the media that. They'll go to reporters and say, "Be careful. He's delusional. He sees things that just aren't there." And when I've talked to other officers that have been treated this way, especially females that report sexual assault in the workplace, in the police workplace, they're told exactly the same. They're talked about exactly the same. This girl, you can't listen to this girl. She's crazy. She's emotional. She's hormonal. There's a pattern. There's a pattern to the way they deal with these things when it comes to whistleblowers. And I don't care. I'm seriously, I'm way past the point of fuck giving. They destroy my career intentionally. I'm not going to destroy anything of theirs, but I'm just going to make sure that everybody knows the truth. And that's what the book did. Also, the book.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to release the book. That was mine. That was me putting it on paper, getting it out of my head, and just dealing with it. And then somebody reached out to do a TV show. So there's a TV show in post-production. Pre-production? Yeah, pre-production. So when we went to the various production companies, they all came back and said, "Was the book?" So I had to write the book. I had to publish the book for the production companies to keep them happy. I think it's a litigious thing. You publish the book and I don't get sued, and they can publish the TV show without issue. But I took 100,000 words out. I got it down to 80,000 words. So
yeah, you got to cut down a lot, right? Otherwise, you're gonna have to have a TV series.
No, it took away from the story. I've got a tale to tell, and that tale includes not only the corruption part, but the wrongdoing of other officers and the way the mafia dealt with it. And it's a massive story, but I managed to get it down to 80,000 words, and I think I've done so pretty successfully. It came together really nicely in the end. So it's done. It's out there. Let them do the TV show, and then I'm done with this.
Now, where can people find your book?
It's on Amazon. It's pretty easy to find. It's called 1078. The word 10, the word 70, the word 8. And that's police code for assistance, that I need help. I thought it was pretty apt.
It is pretty good. I'll put a link in the description of this video for your book. And
thank you.
It's a great story.
Thank you.
And I
appreciate
really wish you the best. I wish you the best on your endeavors.
Dude, I'm done. I'm out. When the book's done, peaceful life, kids tennis, that's me.
Well, let me know, man. We'll do another show if you're available, and
sounds good.
We'll get this out to the people. I appreciate you. Is there anyone else you want to give a shout out to before we go?
No, just the wife and kids for all the support they give me throughout this entire mess. Because when we found ourselves at battle with the police, we found ourselves subject to warrants and arrests and things like that. So they're pretty. You need to read the book, but they're pretty. They don't hide their corruption. They double down. So, but the wife and the kids, they were always there for me.
If you like this show, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you can get my videos every time they drop. And if you don't like this show, too bad. Start your own podcast. Peace.